Okay. Let's look at a third possibility. This one gets really kind of goofy, though. Multiple alleles. Multiple alleles. Varieties. Okay. Different varieties, different alleles. Mendel said there's only two possible. For example, you got tall versus short. You got brown versus light. You've got pink versus white. Okay, whatever. There were only two possibilities that people could have. Well, the reality is that there can be more than two, but there still can only inherit two. That sounds kind of wordy. There can be more than two varieties or choices, but you still are going to only inherit two, one from each parent. So this isn't quite like the polygenic. Polygenic's still a little bit different, where you get more than just one. Okay, you're still getting one from each parent here, but you have more choices. The best example of this is to do with human blood typing. Human blood typing was a long time mystery. We didn't quite understand it. We first would try to get blood from animals, thinking we could somehow transfer characteristics of the animals to the human. So we would transfer the blood of a lamb into a human, hoping to make him more docile, more calm, because lambs are calm. Or we would take the blood from a bull and put it into a human, thinking that the human would get aggressive like a bull. It's totally bogus. It didn't work, and many times people got killed from it. Then we got a little bit smarter. We took blood from human cadavers, people that had died, and we put that blood into people. And sometimes it actually worked. It kept people alive, but then other times it mysteriously killed them. So it's kind of, well, do you take your chances or not? Well, then we started to realize on the outside of human blood, there are proteins. We've talked about these, peripheral proteins. These are, we call them markers, but they're kind of like name tags. And there's two genes for this. We have one, we write it like a capital I with the letter A. There's one gene that will make the A protein on red blood cells, RBCs, red blood cell. The B gene makes a B protein on the outside of the cell. And then you have the recessive, lowercase I, that doesn't make either one. It doesn't have the A or the B. No A or B protein. So their red blood cells are naked. That seems kind of weird, but they don't have any A or B proteins on them. Now what adds the complexity of this is the A and the B genes are codominant. That means if they both show up, they both get expressed. Well, let's see if we can sort this all out. This gets really complex, but we'll try to keep this as simple as possible. Okay. Let's look at the genotype side of things. Let's say mom passed on the A gene, and yes, you do have to write it this way. Otherwise, it's going to get really confusing. So maybe mom passed on the A gene, and maybe dad passed the A gene. Well, this one's really simple. The phenotype would be A blood. So if you've talked about A blood type, if someone has the well, we won't get into positive negative business yet. But let's say the A positive blood, okay? There is another genotype that would give the same physical expression. One parent gives the A gene, the other parent gives the recessive. I know it's starting to look weird, but that's heterozygous. One dominant, capital I, one recessive, lowercase I. That's heterozygous for A blood. This would be homozygous dominant for A blood. Okay, I may have lost some people there. All right, let's try another combination. What if I got the B gene and another B gene? Well, that's basically the same thing, but it's got the different protein on the outside. It's got the B protein, and I could get heterozygous for that too. Okay. So those are two possibilities. Now, there's another possibility. What if I got an A from one parent and a B from the other parent? Well, what blood type is it? A and B are codominant. So if A and B are both there, they're both going to be expressed. So if I were to zoom in on somebody with AB blood, they're going to have A proteins on the outside of their cells as well as B proteins on the outsides of their cells. There is no heterozygous condition for that. In other words, I can't have IA, IB, lowercase I. I can't have 3 genes. I don't have 3 parents. Okay, so I've got only 2 parents. I can only get 1 from each parent. There is, however, one more genotype that I have not put up there. Anybody figure it out? What genotype is missing? Lowercase I, lowercase I. Hopefully someone thought of that. Homozygous recessive is O blood. O blood, which kind of looks like a 0 to me. O blood does not have A blood, doesn't have the B blood, doesn't have the proteins, doesn't have any of those proteins. It's naked, so to speak, because it's got the recessive condition. O blood. So we got 4 phenotypes with only 3 different genes. Okay, that gets pretty complicated stuff. Now what's even weirder, not to lose anybody yet, but what's even weirder is that sometimes we would take A blood and put it into another A blood person and it would kill them. That's even weirder. We're now in the 1950s, 1960s. This is not that long ago. We could take B blood and put B blood into people that are already B blood, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it killed them. That's pretty specific. All right, what's going on? Well, we found a third protein. We called it the RH factor for rhesus monkeys, because those are the primates we found it in. Rhesus monkeys have this protein as well. We do too. And there's actually more proteins than just A, B, or RH. There's at least 4 or 5 different proteins if we want to go into it all. But this is the third major protein that somebody could have. You could have the A, you could have the B, you could have RH. Okay? If you have it, then we say you're RH positive. If you don't have it, we call it RH negative. Negative is the recessive, Positive is dominant. And what this would look like, you could be positive positive. In other words, mom gave you that gene, dad gave you that gene, you're going to have that protein, the Rh protein. Maybe mom gave it to you, but dad did not. You're still going to have it. It's dominant. Okay, just like Mendel would have said, it's going to dominate that recessive trait. The only way for you to be a blood type that's negative is if both parents passed on the negative gene to you. Okay? So here's kind of summing all of this up together. If I am AB blood, I inherited those two genes, and maybe I'm AB positive. I inherited those two genes. This is just like, if you think about this sort of thing, it's just like doing this. The only difference is those are those two. Those are those two. It just looks really strange because it looks different than what we've been doing. But it's still two genes for one trait, the blood type, two genes for the positive negative business. And we'll do more practice with this on Friday. If that made 0 sense, take a look on Moodle, look at this video again, see if it'll make sense maybe a couple more times after looking at it. All right, at this point, you will be working on a lab activity. Some of you have already done that or started it, and some of you will continue it after it's explained a little bit to you. Okay? All right, good luck. Thanks.